Welcome to OIC, the podcast that shines a light on innovation and discusses the technology currently being developed at the University of Alabama. Join us as we chat with UA's top inventors, uncovering the inspiration behind their technologies and how they plan to make an impact on society. And now, from the Office for Innovation and Commercialization in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, your host, Caitlin May.
So why don't you just start with introducing yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about what you do?
So my name is Erik Johnson. I'm an assistant professor in the Culverhouse School of Business. I'm in the Economics, Finance, and Legal Studies department. I've been in Tuscaloosa now for 4 years. I'm originally from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is way north. And I just brought some Tuscaloosa people up there and they couldn't believe how rural it was. Rural and cold, but has a lot of commonalities with Alabama, actually. So I have 3 kids, all here in the schools, and a very supportive wife, Sarah. I was previously at the University of Richmond in Richmond, Virginia, and was recruited here actually by Amanda Ross, who's a colleague and does urban economics as well in the econ department. And our chair actually was at VCU at the time. So the new chair here in the econ department was Laura Resley, was at VCU. And so between Amanda and Laura, I'm now here in Alabama. So
it just kept pushing you here, huh?
Yeah. It was, I just was actually at Laura's for dinner last night and we were reminiscing about the time we met in the coffee shop. And yeah.
Oh, how funny.
I think she was happy. I think she was happy she met me, but
Well, so obviously we have you here because you have a really cool innovation. Why don't you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, so the innovation is basically we have a goal of detecting blight and code enforcement violations in cities and actually just about anywhere in a real, I think, cost-effective and efficient manner. And so right now, the state of the world is that if you have a house next to you, which is abandoned or something, you're really worried about this, you may call 311, which is the 911 for nuisance violations or whatever. And so you call 311, you report it to the city, and eventually they send an inspector out and potentially start finding this property. But that tends to be very, very reactive sort of policy, where you're waiting for someone to call in, and you're also kind of stretching code enforcement officers thin. They don't have a lot of time to just drive around and look for nuisances. Nuisance maybe isn't the right word, but they're not looking for this stuff, right? They're just really
yeah.
And so what we decided, and I'll say who we is in just a minute, but one of the big things is trying to intervene in these properties early before they get kind of out of control. And so in order to do that, you need pretty consistent monitoring, and you need to collect data regularly, and you also need to analyze the data pretty cheaply, right? So we're trying to overcome those 2 hurdles by creating a camera system that mounts on the sides of garbage trucks here in Tuscaloosa. And as they drive by properties, it's early in the morning for most of these. They grab a picture of or an image of a property, and then at the end of the day, all this stuff gets uploaded via Wi-Fi back at the garbage truck depot. And we have servers that we've trained to mimic the eyes of code enforcement officers to look for code enforcement violations. So that's what we're doing.
That's really cool. So how did you, what's your path to coming up with that idea to try and target that issue by putting your camera on, a garbage truck with a system that's already in place?
So, I should say that, we also do, so we're actually working with some other cities right now as well. And it's not, what we're realizing is that it's not, the garbage truck's the first best solution, right? So garbage trucks go by houses once a week. They stop, so you get a super clear picture if you want, and it's always the same angle because people always put their garbage cans in the same spot. Garbage trucks are the most wonderful vehicle for this, but some other cities that we're working with right now are actually just putting them on code enforcement vehicles and having to drive around and collect data all day. And then they can, I don't know what code enforcement officers do while they're driving around, but whatever. So it doesn't have to be a garbage truck. I just want to be really clear on that.
Sure.
And we are talking to some garbage truck companies as well to try to kind of introduce that as an option to cities in terms of their service package. But the real idea for this came with goes back to, and I think one of the really interesting things about this project is so much of this is because of being a professor at the University of Alabama with a really kind of innovative city right here. And so I'd like to take credit for all this, but it's totally not true at all. So I was teaching urban economics right before COVID hit, like I think it was like February of 2020. And I was
back when life was good.
Yeah, it was like those last moments, right?
Right.
Those last moments. And so I was walking across the quad after class. I'd had 3 guest speakers that day. One who Dave Past, who does a bunch of property management in town. Brendan Moore, who works for the city of Tuscaloosa in planning, and is really innovative and does interesting stuff. And Brandon Casteller, who's a running partner of mine and also is like the lead construction guy for Habitat. And I was like, this is a great combo. Anyways, on the way across the quad after class, Brendan asked me about my research, and I've done a lot of work with trying to understand the value of the built environment in cities. So we have a kind of a fun paper where we went to with a professor from University of Cambridge, where we have data from the UK, and we're able to teach algorithms to detect architectural styles of homes.
Oh, wow.
And then we're able to see like some of this NIMBYism, like I only live in a neighborhood with late Victorian Edwardians. And we want to see introducing different styles actually hurt property values, and which is kind of neat for policy. Not that neat. Tuscaloosa doesn't care about this at all, of course. But then we, so that worked really well. I had a paper with Alan Tidwell, who's a colleague here, and another professor from UT Arlington, that we measured curb appeal of houses in Denver. And so we basically had real estate agents assign curb appeal values to homes. And so this is going somewhere. I know this is kind of like drawn out answer, but the basic idea was I wanted to know like how much value making your house look nice from the outside added to the sales price. But even more importantly, and this is totally going to date me as being old, I really thought like, what happens when you go out to pick up your newspaper on your front steps in the morning and you look across the street, like in your robe or whatever, how much does what you see across the street affect your property value as well? So we actually used the Google Street View to in cameras, do all this kind of fun stuff. And we found that there was about a 6% increase in property values if you went from like your house went from the ugliest to the nicest curb appeal in the neighborhood. Everything else equal, right? And then, but what was really fascinating was the across the street house had about a 3% impact. So there was like this component of, you know, the equity you have in your house, it's actually happening directly across the street, you know, and we didn't measure like the people on either side of you or the whole neighborhood. It was just that one house across the street. And I think, and so I told this exact story to Brendan, and he instantly said like, oh, we should detect blight. Like, why you focused on this upper end of the market with curb appeal and late Victorians? Like in Tuscaloosa, what we need to worry about is like vacant houses and urban blight. And if you really want to have an impact and help cities out, then that's the part of the market that you should really be focused on. And like when he said it, I just was like, wow, I don't know. Like, I'm embarrassed.
Like, why didn't I think of that?
Yes, I was like, I totally should have thought of that.
I'd love to hear about some of the benefits that you've seen in our community in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, so I think in Tuscaloosa, we're still really in a monitoring phase. So I think, you know, one of the big things we're seeing in Tuscaloosa is just this ability to kind of know where blight is happening or where properties are kind of trending in the wrong direction in real time. And that has been really, really, I think you probably have to talk to Brendan about how useful that is, but I know the city's pretty excited about that. So up in Philadelphia, they actually went in and teamed up with a nonprofit, and they just cleaned up neighborhoods. And when I say cleaned up, I don't like mean mow the grass, but actually did infrastructure improvements in houses.
Mhm.
I mean, they found like these massive benefits in health outcomes for young, like K through 12 people in those
Oh,
neighborhoods.
wow.
So when you think about like, I've always thought about blight as, hey, if I'm a homeowner like my grandmother, I want this gone because it's ugly and it's hurting my home equity. And it's
Yeah.
just, and all these things, but or maybe it attracts crime, but it actually has these really salient and impactful outcomes on health, right? Which I think is like one of these fundamental things that is really important. So I would hope that our project helps inform that. And I think when we've seen like Detroit actually had a blight project where they had people walking around with cell phones and taking pictures, right?
Okay.
We'll automate that, and then they'd have people look at the blighted homes. And so we're automating that. And so Mobile had a huge project where they did a similar thing. And we're trying to just streamline this thing and make it more efficient. The last thing in the city of Tuscaloosa, to go back, is that one of the big issues municipalities and people and institutions have right now is we're all drowning in data, right? So it's like, oh, thank you for all these pictures. Like, what are we going to do with this? And so using the AI to actually do this and create the blight scores, and our AI actually suggests improvements as well that can help alleviate the blight. So we can detect like overgrown vegetation, cracks in masonry, gutters falling off. So we can kind of like say like, here's a property and here's some low-hanging fruit to remediate this.
Okay.
It's all automated, but
that's great.
And then so what we're doing in Tuscaloosa is putting in like places that have a lot of kids and maybe places with higher crime rates, and then houses which are in clusters of blight, or a blighted house, a house that's relatively blighted compared to the neighborhood. We don't want to hurt the neighborhood. So we're creating prioritization scores as well. So it's like, great, there's 300 houses we need to fix. That doesn't help us. Like, but if you really want to have impact, right, here's the order, here's a potential order you can start thinking about the replacement. So
Okay.
yeah, that's another really long answer.
No, I mean, it's great. And I like how, I think it's important to realize that what you said about it being automated, and also how it kind of comes up with that tiered system, it sounds like. But one thing I'm curious about, when we talk about data, I think a worry that people always have is privacy, especially when it comes to their home and their kids. So would you mind talking a little bit about the safeguards that are in place to kind of ease people's minds on that and help them understand why the benefit truly does outweigh that risk there?
Yeah, so I think this is always like the most sensitive part of this, and I think for really good reason. Like my brothers, like my family, my brother, like people I really trust and like respect have all kind of, this was the first thing, like they had like this gut reaction to like, this is not cool at all. And it's funny, now that I've been like working with this now for a year and a half, the impacts, so I think anything in life has costs and benefits, right?
Oh yeah.
And as we're going through this, we're starting to realize the benefits are really, really great. And so I'll talk about the costs, but I think that, this is really used correctly, right? And I think that's always the big issue with something like with technology, but used in the right way, there's potentially massive benefits, not just to cities, right, but to individuals and people within these cities and residents. And so I think in any sort of discussion like this, we have to think about, weighing the cost benefits. As an economist, of course, I'm going to say that. But this is a really, this is something that we're very, very concerned may be the wrong word, but very aware of and really try to balance. So one thing definitely, like, which just goes without saying, is that we put any sort of training data we have in this, there's no people in it, right? So that's important, where we don't want to be like identifying people. The second thing is, in any sort of the data that we use with the city, we absolutely are not sharing faces and stuff like that. And then the other thing is that in a lot of times these garbage trucks are going pretty early in the morning. So we're not
Sure.
seeing, and that's what Google Street View does too, is they actually run those trucks really early in the morning. Their Street View cars usually pretty early.
Oh, that makes sense, but I never thought about it.
Yeah, because you never see like traffic, right? And so
Yeah.
it's another beauty of garbage trucks. Like it's amazing how great garbage trucks
Oh.
are. But yeah, that's the those are the big things. And we also aren't we're not publicly putting up this data. So like
Right.
Google Street View, you could go, anybody can go on and check it out. With this, right, we're really using it, trying to take actions within the city and not to like, we're not like naming and shaming houses,
Right.
So yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that, it's very valid. And, what I always try to do with this is whenever I come up with something, I'm like, oh, I hadn't really thought about this privacy implication, is try to think how I'd feel about it, right? Not necessarily like what's legal or what's okay, because everything we're doing is like on the up and up, but it's also like, what would I feel comfortable as a father and as a homeowner who has a trailer in his front yard?
Yeah.
Or probably whatever. So yes, that's another really long answer.
No, thank you though. And I mean, I think it's good for people to hear that human side of it, and that idea of how would I react to this?
Right.
I think it's so important as scientists and researchers to kind of ask ourselves that process and put ourselves in the participants, or in this case, the recipients of that innovation's shoes.
One thing we have seen, which I just real quick is
Yeah.
there's actually been some, when this first got publicized, locally, there was a little, and I shouldn't say publicized, right? But when this was first announced locally, so there was an announced then done, not the other way around.
Right.
People were like, all of a sudden, like, hey, this house next door to me is blighted. Like, why aren't you fixing it? Like, it was like instantly everybody's like, oh, you can do this. Like, why aren't you doing this right now? So it's been funny that there's privacy, but then people are just like, okay, but there are benefits to this. So like they're demanding that we like take care of things.
Right. So can you talk to me a little bit about just your process of making this a reality? Did you have any sort of like notable aha or a trial and error moment, or even a failure that you could speak on during this project's research and development?
The cameras were really, really important. And going back to privacy, one thing I did not want to do was go around the city and record videos of everything that was going on. Like that was super, when I was like, what do you want this to look like? That was super distasteful to me. Like, so that's when we wrote, I don't want to talk too much about the technology behind the cameras, but
sure.
We built the cameras so that they take one picture of a house when they drive by.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great point to bring up.
Yeah. So we're like, we want to minimize the data footprint. We don't want to be sucking up all the data in the city. We want what we need to make this project work and nothing more. Right. And so it's pretty cool though, because that also minimizes our data footprint. So we don't have to, massive amounts of storage for this thing. So that was a big pitfall, or a big kind of jump we had to do, was building these cameras. And that was a fun thing. And I probably shouldn't mention this, but it was
secret safe with me.
I involved my kids in this, right? So like they helped out with the camera building. They actually the kids would go out, whatever. No, so I would bring my kids on the weekend, and they'd go out and help me replace batteries on the cameras at the garbage.
Oh my gosh.
And so like my kids think it's totally normal to spend like Saturday evening getting batteries and the cameras ready for like Sunday night. So yes, that's been I
love that though.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like the educator in me, I just love the idea of giving them that hands-on experience. That's fantastic.
Yeah, the only worry is they think it's normal, right? Like,
yeah. But I think kids are the best innovators though. I mean, they've got that creativity and imagination, and they're not afraid to think about things differently.
Oh yeah, we lost a camera originally because we have them all attached with magnets and stuff.
Okay.
One of the cameras got knocked off by a tree, and my daughter was actually like, oh, why don't you like put a hook on this and a piece of wire, and I was like, yeah, okay. Like,
did you do it?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, well, shout out to her. That's so I love that. In the best case scenario, what do you want City Detect to accomplish?
So
Like
we
dream
are,
world.
yeah, so we are, I should say like, we've actually, so we created City Detect as a name for like the pitch competition, but we're actually just Eek Labs. So
Oh, okay, good to know.
like I should have probably given you a heads up, like, oh, by the way, we don't have that name. So
No worries.
but yeah, so oh, and I should also, before I jump there, we have the camera guy is like this one of the most talented people I've been involved with, who's a recent grad actually from University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, who was introduced to me by Kenny Wonder, who's
Okay.
actuarial professor here, is like, oh, you need to work on these cameras, you need to meet this guy. And so his name's Ezra Coutre, and he's just this like savant ability to like make things work.
Oh,
And
wow.
so like, yes, that would have been so horrible if I wouldn't have mentioned it, Kenny and Ezra.
But we did it.
Yeah. So what was the other, oh, where are we go? What's like the goal?
What do you want to happen next? Like, what's your best case scenario of what you see this accomplishing?
Yeah, so we've actually moved through the university kind of publicizing this in early February, late January of this year. We've actually had cities reach out to us that are interested in the technology. And so right now we just signed paperwork yesterday to start up a pilot project in Springfield, Illinois, which is
Okay.
really
Congrats.
Yeah. And it's a municipality, right? So we've been talking to them for like 6 months. And it's finally like at this point where we're ready to go up there. And I think I'm going to personally go up there in 2 weeks and put the cameras on, make sure everything's working. Like this is going to, and make sure, make sure this is the
Make
best
it all
thing.
happen.
Yes, this is going to happen. And I'm going to put redundant cameras on. It's going to, their car's going to look like a Christmas tree. Anyways, so yeah, and then we're also talking to I don't want to name them till they like are
right.
But we're talking to a city in the Los Angeles metro area right now as well.
Okay. Wow.
And so I think like once we have, Tuscaloosa has been a great place to experiment and try new stuff out and try different GPS receivers, different cameras, different strategies. And Tuscaloosa has given us the room to kind of, I think, make our technology kind of game ready. I guess not to, I'm not going to go there. But I feel like I should say, there has to be a trust the process quote in here somewhere. But,
there you go. We've got to get a little bit of cheesiness in there.
Yes. So
dream big, you can do it.
That's right. But so yeah, that's we're hoping that Springfield should be a great success. We're really excited about that, and hopefully Springfield's also really interested in other code enforcement stuff. So like just to know where an overgrown grass is that's been like that for 4 weeks, like it'd be nice to get involved and help.
Sure.
That's actually one of the number one complaints on 311 is actually not like a blighted property. It's like my neighbor's not cutting the grass and there's snakes everywhere, right? Like that. Yeah.
I don't think I could do the snakes, but
No, I mean, but that's so I think it's not just blight. I think there's a lot of room for understanding code enforcement interventions. I know in Birmingham they've they're manually finding overgrown grass and stuff like that, and then bringing the community together to go and mow the property, right? And so I think that's had some real success there. And I just, and that's a low-hanging fruit, right? First your grass is overgrown, then the roof falls in, and then the tree falls down, and then the car gets rusty, right? But so I think early interventions and rolling this out to more cities are really where we'd love to be.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to the OIC podcast. It was great to get to hear about all the exciting work you're doing, and best luck to you moving forward.
All right, thanks a lot. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thanks for listening to OIC, a podcast from the University of Alabama's Office for Innovation and Commercialization in Tuscaloosa. Tune in next time for more inspiring innovators and their impactful inventions. Until then, stay curious, keep learning, and roll Tide.